Hello, Year 5. We've been playing around with multiplication this week, and we've been looking at different ways that we could do a question like 35 times 18, or any double digit by double digit multiplication. So I wanted to run a quick video by you so that you could see how it was that we were doing it in class and have an opportunity to practice and show your parents at home as well. So on Monday we started with a question like 35 times 18, and we did it the way that probably your parents are used to seeing. And it's certainly the way that I was shown when I was your age. We started off looking at 8 times 5, which is 40. But we're going to hold on to the 4 and put it up here. And we're going to carry that. Next up, we're going to look at 8 times 3, which is 24, but is plus that additional 4, so it's 28. Now here's where a lot of us had some problems. We're going to move down to the second row. We're going to look at the 1 in that number 18, but reminding us that it's not a 1, it's actually a 10. So before we move on to that column, we have to drop a 0. And this is where a lot of us made our mistake. Now we're ready to move on, and 1 times 5 is 5. And 1 times 3 is 3. So once we've got that done, we're ready to add those two numbers together. So I'll just draw our little line. 0 plus 0 being 0. 8 plus 5 being 13, but once again we're going to carry that 1. And then 2 plus 3 is 5, plus that extra 1 is 6, which means 35 times 18 is 630. Okay, so we're ready to move on now, and we're going to look at a different way that we can do that and still come up with the same result. So, I can look at a question like 35 times 18, and what I'm really being asked is what is 35 times 8 and 35 times 10? So I'm going to do it that way. Well, 35 times 8, and I have to admit I don't really know what that is. But 35 times 10, well, I definitely know that, because I know that 35 times 1 is 35, and so 35 times 10 is 350. Now, unfortunately, that means I have to go back up to my 35 times 8. But there's an easier way for me to do that as well. I can look at a question like 35 times 8 and say, well, 35 times 8 is the same thing as 5 times 8 and 30 times 8. Well, 5 times 8 is 40, and 30 times 8, well, 3 times 8 is 24, and so 30 times 8 would be 240. Now I can look at my 240 and my 40, add those two together, and I will know that 35 times 8 is 280. Now it's just a matter of me taking my 280 and my 350 and adding those together. No, that's not good enough. We'll make a prettier line than that. Much better. So 0 and 0 is 0. 8 and 5 is 13. Once again, I'm going to have to carry that 1. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus that carried 1 is 6. And once again, I've come up with the answer of 630. Now, those are two different ways of doing the same problem, but they really are quite similar. If you look at the question that I did over here, well, I found out what 8 times 35 was. And then I moved on and I found out what 10 times 35 was. 8 times 35 was 280. 10 times 35 was 350. That's essentially the same thing I did over here, it's just a different way of looking at it. Now that's the standard way of doing a question like that, but we worked on a way later on in the week that was a little bit different. The problem with the way we worked on, though, is it just doesn't work for every question. It only works some of the times. But some of the times is better than none of the times, and it does make some of the times easier. So 35 times 18. Well, if I don't know what 35 times 18 is, as long as one of my two numbers is an even number, I can make this a little bit easier on myself. I can say, well, 35 times 18. Well, if I take 35 and I double it, I'll have 70. And if I take 18 and I half it, I'll have 9. Now I'm looking at a question like 70 times 9. And because I know my multiplication tables, I know that 7 times 9 is 63. And so 70 times 9 will be 630. So that means that 35 times 18 is 630. Like I said, it doesn't work all the time, but it works some of the time, and it does make things a little bit easier on you. Okay, try those out at home. Give yourself a couple of questions to do and see how you do.